Now we go, and we start the program again by saying, welcome to one more edition of Politics. I'm Rana Berto Willis, your host. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the show. We're going to have a great show for you today. Today we are going to talk about a person, a man, who after one of our recent elections, election passed, he decided that, oh my God, this isn't the country for me anymore. And he decided to leave the country. And he went to live in Norway. Well, he happens to be a listener of Politics Done Right. And he decided, well, you know what? I am going to tell my story. Something that I've been asking people to talk about. I think I got the audio fixed now, Candido and Don Kaufman. Thank you very kindly for being here. But anyhow, I think we've got that taken care of. Anyhow, what is the show going to be about today? Title of the show today is American in Norway. This is what real healthcare should look like. Subtitle, Jonathan Hall, an American formerly residing in Kentucky, moved to Norway several decades ago. He talks about Norway's healthcare system, which he loves. It is what a humane, moral system looks like. America does not have the best healthcare for most. The system in Norway is humane, it is ethical, and efficient. Listen to Jonathan Hall's story about his kid hospitalized in Norway after a catastrophic crash. If he was in America, if this man was in America, he would have been bankrupt. He would have been bankrupted. Instead of it costs Mr. Hall nothing other than the taxes he pays as a resident of Norway. So folks, let's get busy and let's go ahead and listen to what Jonathan has to say, and then we'll take it on the other side. I think you'll find it quite intriguing. Here we go. Welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I have recently I've been doing stories, talking to people about their real stories occurring with their healthcare, how it's handled in different places. And luckily, yesterday I received an email from Jonathan Hall in Stavanger, Norway. I hope I said that right, Jonathan.
That sounds right.
And he had a story, and I asked him to come on to Politics Done Right to tell us a little bit about that. So, Jonathan, first of all, you are from the United States of America. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
And what blew you over to Europe, to Norway?
Okay, well, that's another story. But in 1984, in the beginning of November of 1984, we had an election in the United States. I was working in Kentucky, in my hometown there, Lexington. And, that Wednesday, man, I looked at that big map with all those red states on it, and I said, the hell with this. In the beginning of November of 1984, we had an election. I'm just gonna run, and I hung around to Thanksgiving, and then I was gone.
Also, you are braver than most. A lot of people felt that way, and they decided to just, some were able to leave, and lucky you were able to get out and do what you wanted to do. But anyhow, one of the issues that I speak a whole lot about is Medicare for all. I speak a lot about healthcare. And what we find here is that we have a healthcare system that I consider very evil, but most Americans have a tendency to believe that this is the best you have. This is the best one can expect. I was happy to hear from you because you have a story to tell. So what I would love for you to do is to tell us your story with healthcare in Norway, where you're at right now.
Okay. I've lived in Norway for 32 almost 33 years now. And the health care that I have received myself has been excellent. Fortunately, thankfully, I haven't had any serious problems myself, but I've been in the hospital once for an appendicitis, and it was fixed, and I was there for I was there for several days. They wouldn't let me out until they were absolutely sure that everything was fixed. This is 15, 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
2 years ago, our son, who was 17 at the time, got in a motorcycle accident. He had, as a result of that, he had massive brain trauma. And they put him in an induced coma.
Mm-hmm.
He was in an induced coma for about 6 weeks. After that, most of that time was in the ICU. Then after that, there were several weeks when he was recovering before he was actually starting to get a few words, starting to talk again, and learn how to talk, learn how to walk. Then he was in rehabilitation in the nearby city of Bergen, a specialist rehabilitation center for trauma victims, with complete physical rehabilitation, physical therapy, speech therapy, manual therapy, with just a whole team of specialists looking after him.
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful people, amazing health professionals doing all this work around him, pretty much 24 hours a day.
Mm-hmm.
The point, I guess, is that this was free. We didn't pay anything for any of this. And I don't know how to get that reality across to you, to your viewers. It's I can't put it any more simply than that. And one thing is even more important than that is that it was simple. There was nobody to deal with except for health professionals. They looked at the patient. When you go to a doctor here, well, as I said in my email earlier, I didn't have to sign my name until several weeks after this was all over, when I was applying for a reimbursement for some travel expenses. Then they wanted me to fill out some forms.
So let me ask you this. Here it is that your son got taken care of free of charge. Well, we know it's not really free of charge. Everybody pays into the system because you pay taxes, but that is
Right.
how it's done. So what you're telling me now is you even got reimbursed for the travel that you had to do to take care of your son.
Right, back and forth to the hospital and the rehabilitation center, several trips, both me and his mother. Sure, nothing's free. Everybody knows that. I'm not going to try to fool you or put out some kind of utopian bull thing. It's of course, we pay taxes. They're moderate. It costs. Life is expensive, but I get back to this, and we could go into the details about the taxes and stuff here. I compared it with people I've talked to in the United States, and they said, "Oh, well, that's not too bad."
Because you know what is amazing, Jonathan, is a lot of people don't realize if you have to have insurance, right? Because you want to make sure you're taken care of, and your insurance is costing you $15,000 a year, which is pretty inexpensive here in the United States. That is effectively another $15,000 a year tax you're paying anyway.
Right.
The only difference is that it's going to a whole lot of rich fat cats who take who skim that to make a few people profits. You don't have that in Norway.
Right. Like I was saying, when you deal with a health professional here, the guy looks you in the eye and he says, "Okay, I have some bad news for you. This is a medical crisis that is going to change your life. in drastic ways. Or he looks at you, he looks you in the eye and he says, this is a problem. This is an appendicitis. We can fix this. We've done it 1,000 times. You're going to be in the hospital a few days. But what he doesn't do is he doesn't say, here's all these forms to fill out. Who is your insurer? Who is your provider? Who is, are we approved by your insurance company? Who's paying for this? It's just not there. And that's the beauty of the system. Not how much it costs. It's cheaper. As I put in my mail, I looked up these figures. 17.8% of the United States GDP is used on health care. In Norway, it's 10.4%.
You know what is interesting? Before you said that, Jonathan, what I'd like folks to understand, because I am an engineer by training before I turned political activist, and all I believe in are numbers. And the interesting thing is the difference in those numbers, because you have to admit, let's say people in Norway and America, they are, of similar health. Of course, Norway probably healthier because better healthcare, but that differential that you see in GDP is exactly the amount of money you could calculate is extracted to enrich the few that controls the medical industrial complex. It's amazing. Yeah.
What do they do to deserve all of these profits?
Right.
I don't know. So that's our situation here. It's been like this since 1910, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Right. It's just a matter of course that your health care is part of what you pay for when you make this contract with society. That I'm going to go to work, pay taxes. And when I go to the doctor, when my neighbor goes to the doctor, even if I'm healthy all my life, when my neighbor goes to the doctor, I can go over to him and take him a box of candy and say, get well soon. I don't have to worry about him losing his house. It's
what I think you mentioned that Michael Moore was over there and the system was so good. He didn't put it into his film Sicko because he think it would be unbelievable. Many people wouldn't believe that a system could be created that is that good.
I saw this somewhere and I haven't had a chance to look it up again. I think you'd probably find it on YouTube. He did an extra report from Norway as a kind of addendum or appendix to Sicko.
Mm-hmm.
So it's it's whatever. It's a 5-minute report. It didn't go into the film.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, the system here is more streamlined and cheaper and easier than in a lot of countries.
Now, did your son have to wait in a waiting room at all when he had that emergency?
No, it was right into. He was way out in the wilderness. We live in some of the most beautiful scenic country in the world. It's just amazing. And he was out in a place where it's kind of hard to get to. So they took him from the top of this road. They took him in an ambulance to a nearby village where he was transported by helicopter to the hospital.
And how much did the helicopter cost you?
What?
That's my point. I was being funny because over here, when they live flight you, you're talking about $8,000 to $10,000.
Right. I don't know how you deal with it. I honestly don't. I was fairly young when I moved. I was pretty much just out of school, and I'd been working for a couple of years, but I hadn't really started on an adult life. I hadn't been dealing with all of these real problems that you all do. But when I talk to somebody there who has gone through some of this, and they start talking about co-pays and providers and terms that I don't know anything about, I'm just like, you want to go to a doctor and you want to look them in the eye and say, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with my body? What is this that's affecting my family? How are we going to deal with this? You don't want to go in there and start talking about insurance.
Well, let me just tell you, my daughter just had a stroke 2 weeks ago. She's 28 years old.
I heard about that, and I hope that works out.
She's doing much better than any of us would have expected, and in fact, she went to her first class less than 2 weeks after her stroke. She's still half blind in the eye, but my daughter is a trooper. She is a trooper.
Yeah.
But the thing about it, Jonathan, why I also wanted your story is you make it quite clear that you have an acquaintance that died at 50 years old in the United States. Tell us a story.
Well, the story is that, you grow up with these people. And I've known this guy since I was 18 or so. We went to school together. And we worked together. We played in a band together. We worked at the theater together, and he was such a charming guy and so funny and so full of life and amusement and love of life. And he had some, what started out as just minor health problems. He got some problems with his kidneys, and that didn't get taken care of because, as I put in my email, I said that he was a musician. I guess you'd call it an itinerant musician. He worked from day to day. He was always on the fringes of what we would call an adult employment situation, and over the years, he got his treatment in emergency rooms.
Right.
He couldn't afford to go anywhere else. So they would send him home as soon as they could. They would say, no, we can't treat this. We can give you something for the pain. We can put a plaster on it, but you don't put a plaster on, advanced, kidney stones and later on kidney failure that was treated in the emergency room. And with, I don't know about the admittance to the hospital at that time, but, it was just a complete fuck up. How can you deal with this without having just huge resources? So he, a couple of years before he died, there were several of us who realized how bad it was because he wasn't complaining about this. He was just going and fixing things up as best he could. And, we took up a collection. I don't know if it was together, it was a couple of $1,000s or something, but it was really nothing. And it was too little too late. It was a couple of years later that, somebody called me up and said, look, Matt went into the emergency room last night, and while we were waiting there, he had some kind of seizure, and they couldn't save him. So it's the wrong kind of treatment to give to a patient.
Our system kills, and that's what I'm trying to express, Jonathan, to our audience is that we have a medical system that is not only corrupt, it's not only evil, it's not only immoral, but it actually kills. And people know that
unhealthy, at least.
Yes. And people know, people that run this system know that they're just using the people as income sources as opposed to trying to help them heal. I'm talking about those on the top. I'm not talking about the doctors. I'm not talking about the nurses. These are wonderful people, most of them. But the system just doesn't work. Look, in closing, what I want to talk to you about is, first of all, have you been back to the United States recently, or?
I was there last time in October of 2016.
Mm-hmm.
And I was there in time to see the last debate between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, and I realized that we were in real danger of having this guy elected. It was a shocking experience. I wasn't just in rural Kentucky that time. I was also in New Orleans,
Right.
and Los Angeles. So I had I got to see. I got some pleasure out of the trip as well.
Okay.
But sure, it's spooky to go back, and I'll be going back in a few weeks, and I hope that I wish everybody there the best. I think that America is so full of wonderful, amazing people,
Yes.
and they deserve better.
Yes.
And they deserve a democracy. They deserve to have one vote count, one vote, one person count. Not all of this rigmarole like we've had in Iowa, like we have with the
Electoral college.
Yeah. I still vote. I'm going to vote in the global primary in the beginning of March, Super Tuesday.
So you will be voting, yeah.
I'll be voting in November, of course.
Well, let me tell you, Jonathan, I am going to post your videos and this interview, let people know what can be. And I am going to be doing a whole lot of these to ensure that we let Americans know that there's a better way. What we have here is a mainstream media that tries its best not to inform as they should. I mean, all our media have the ability to come out to Norway, to go to Sweden, to go to all these countries that have similar systems where people are taken care of. That our media don't do that tells us that it's a whole plutocracy that no matter what party is running, somehow they stick together to ensure that we have this corrupt, evil, and immoral healthcare system. Thank you so kindly, Jonathan Hall. Some final words that you'd like to say.
Well, power to the people. Just keep working, keep fighting, and take care of yourselves through all of this. Through all this corruption, we still live in a beautiful world, and we need to take care of each other.
Jonathan Hall from...
Thank you very much, Egberto.
Muchas gracias from Stavanger, Norway. You have a wonderful day, sir. I appreciate you.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Well, folks, I hope you enjoyed that. That was Jonathan Hall from Norway. He's an American expatriate now in Norway. Folks, let me ask you, let's see. Since this is one of the talking points, Norway is a social democracy, correct? Yes, it is. That's what we call democratic socialism, what we have in Norway, Sweden, Denmark, and all these places. Look, what they don't tell you, it is free I hate the word capitalism, and I don't want to use socialism to create some unnecessary fodder. What I want to talk about is a free enterprise system with a strong social safety net. That means if you want to go out there and create a huge business and you want to do all these things, that you can. You always know one thing, however, you will always have access to healthcare that costs you little to nothing, that all of us pay for as a society who comprises saying we have healthcare. The only reason they are investing as much as they are investing right now to lie to you is because you notice the difference in GDP. The rough difference in GDP between what Americans pay for healthcare and what the rest of the world pay for healthcare is our giveaway, the masses giveaway, the trillions that we give to the medical industrial complex and the few people on average that make millions and billions out of the system. Let's remember that, folks. The telephone number is 646-716-5812. Again, that number is 646-716-5812. If you'd like to give a call and tell us your story, if you'd like to set up a story that we can record like we did with Jonathan Hall, drop me a line at info@politicsdoneright.com. And just like I had Jonathan on telling his story, I would be more than happy to do a post interview with you as well, telling your story. Let me tell you something, brothers and sisters. We are not going to make a change from the top down where you have a media that goes ahead and follows the rules of the plutocracy. We are going to make a change on our own. We are going to have to form that network that informs everybody around us. We are going to have to do this ourselves, one person at a time, geometric progression where I tell 10 people and each of those 10 people talk to another 10 people. You see how quickly geometric progression works. That is how we're going to make a change. Jonathan's story is an important story, very, very important story. Now, I want to, and for all of you who saw the debates, there are some very distinct parts of the debate that I cut out. The one part, and mostly this time around, during the debate, there are two things that Andrew Yang had to say. And what I want to do is play you a piece of what Andrew Yang has to say. One of the things that go into why we don't have good health care, why we don't have health care that is worthwhile, is because we have missed a very important point. Check this out from Andrew Yang when he was out there at the debate. I'm starting to notice that most of our progressive Democratic candidates are starting to realize that what we're going to ultimately need is a transformational economic change, a systemic economic change. The centrists will make things better if they are the ones that are chosen. Don't get me wrong. They'll just nibble at the edges, though. Things will pretty much stay status quo. There will be no big improvement in people's lives, but the decline would just slow down. Andrew Yang had what I thought was one of the better economic comments last night, and I want you to listen to what he had to say because it was prescient.
How will we overcome the scandal of American preschoolers living in poverty in the richest nation on earth?
George, we're in the midst of the most extreme winner-take-all economy in the history of our country. And unfortunately, that extremity is just going to reach unprecedented heights as technology is getting stronger, smarter, more capable all the time, and most of us are not. So if we want to alleviate child poverty, we need to put money directly into the hands of families, particularly single parents. We have fallen into this trap where we have allowed the market to tell us what we are all worth. And what does the market value my wife Evelyn at, or stay-at-home parents around the country? 0. Caregivers taking care of ailing loved ones, like Carl Christensen in Iowa. 0. Volunteers and activists in our communities trying to do something positive. 0. Coaches and mentors helping our kids. 0. Most artists, sorry artists, but it's true. 0. Increasingly local journalists, which is wiping out our ability to have a functioning democracy because you can't vote on something if you actually don't have any news coverage. The mission in this campaign has to be for us to disentangle economic value and human value, say they are not the same things, and make this case to our fellow Americans that we each have intrinsic value as citizens, as human beings, and as owners and shareholders of the richest country in the history of the world.
That was prescient. That was prescient. Understand what this guy is saying. Understand what Andrew Yang is saying. It's something that we've talked about a whole lot right here on Politics Done Right. We are in a system that values capital over humanity. Capital over humanity. The first question we always ask, whenever we talk about a social program is, how is it going to affect business? We never ask, how is it going to make people's lives better? We never ask, how is it going to make your child, your children are more effective, learn better? We don't ask those questions first. We first ask, how is it going to affect business? But ironically, whenever we want to go to war, we never ask the questions as far as what is the opportunity cost of going to war? What does it cost the rest of society to go to war? What does it cost the rest of society to present the wealthy with yet another tax cut? We never ask that. We don't ask who is going to, based on our current economic model, who is going to pay that? Well, you know what? Donald Trump came out today with a new budget. And as you know, Donald Trump gave everybody, not everybody, but the multimillionaires, the multi-billionaires, a huge tax cut. Well, within the framework of our economic system, that has to be paid for. And you know what he did? in his new budget? In his new budget, he increased the defense budget to $740 billion. He increased the NASA budget to go to the moon and Mars. He increased a few other things like building the border wall. And you know what he decreased? He decreased Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security. And you know under what tenet he did that? He said, oh, well, we are going to put more work requirements in, etc., etc., etc. Folks, understand what's going on here, okay? The idea here is, and I tell you what, I'm going to play Andrew Yang's other good statement in the debate. I think Andrew Yang had in that debate, everybody was blessing Klobuchar. You know, the mainstream media right now wants to push Klobuchar. She's not really moving up all that much in the polls, but the media wants to will her. I want you guys to go back to our old Politics Done Right podcasts and videos and live shows and remember how many times we've said Biden will be going nowhere. Biden will not be the choice of the Democrats. We also said we don't understand why the establishment believed that somehow Biden would have been the antidote to Donald Trump. We don't understand why a two-time loser in previous primaries, he never even got through the primaries. Bernie almost made it. He never even got through the primaries. Why did they believe, the establishment Democrats believe, that somehow Biden could be the savior? Well, these are the same guys, or the appendage of the same guys who ran the Iowa elections, who in a very small state could not get an app to calculate simple math and communicate it over the internet, and who put telephone numbers so that the Trump people could go ahead and sabotage people calling it in manually. The incompetence of people who then want to say, we want to decide who's going to be the representative for the Democrats. Hell no, the people, the Democrats out there, you Democrats, we Democrats, determine who the Democratic representative is going to be. The establishment doesn't really care. And one of the reasons they don't invest in competence is because, you know what? If they're not going to get an incompetent person that's going to keep the status quo, in their opinion, might as well hold on to Trump. Don't ever doubt that they wouldn't take a Trump over a Bernie Sanders or an Elizabeth Warren. But check out what Andrew Yang had to say. I love what he had to say here. Check this out. While most hyperventilated about how great Amy Klobuchar did tonight, Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, as usual, impressed me with their grassroots type debating style. But Andrew Yang hit at a core. He hit at something that I've been talking about for a long time. I want to play it, and then we'll take it on the other side.
You said you would decriminalize opioids, but you've also said that you would require all overdose patients to go to mandatory treatment centers. How would you make sure treatment is available for all overdose patients? And what would you do to fill the gap in the meantime?
That's what we have to change, Monica. I've heard heartbreaking stories from families here in New Hampshire that have been destroyed, torn apart by the opiate epidemic. And you have to look at the companies that profited to the tune of tens of billions of dollars in profits of essentially blood money. As president, we will take back those profits and put them to work right here in New Hampshire. This is not a money problem fundamentally, this is a human problem, but money cannot be the obstacle. There is so much about this that's endemic to what's happened throughout the country in terms of companies running amok, this hyper-corporate capitalism. If money's on one side in this country and people are on the other side, the money is winning. You can see it with the opiate epidemic, you can see it with the military-industrial complex, the fossil fuel companies. This is what we must change, and that's where I'll lead as president.
You see, he gets it. In America, we still think capital over humanity. When we talk about creating a program to help people, to help humanity, the first question we ask, how is it going to affect business? Well, Andrew Yang, that is what he's talking about. A very important point when he talks about hyper-corporate capitalism. That's what he's talking about. When he talks about taking back what was stolen, he didn't quite say stolen. Taking back the blood money is what he's talking about. They brought opioid into the communities to make money off of this drug. They profited off of infecting people, off of making people dependent of these drugs. And he's saying we should feel very good about taking it back, taking those profits back that were gotten on the backs of making American addicts. He understands the concept. Good job. Anyway, so that's what Yang said. I thought those were two very profound points, and some of the most profound points made at the debate that night. Yes, Bernie was Bernie, and Elizabeth was Elizabeth. They are both stalwarts in the progressive movement. Those are the two that we know are the progressive stalwarts. The question then becomes, who is the other pieces that are going to tie it all together if we had a brokered convention? In listening to all these other people, what you get a chance to see is where you can build a coalition, not necessarily people that agree 100%, but people who's when put together can actually get above and beyond what the centrists, the people who are likely to give us the status quo, meaning they won't be worse than Trump, but they won't solve America's problem. Before I go, I have a Warren video that I want to show you because yesterday on not Meet the Press, but this week, they tried like hell to create a feud between Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren. And Elizabeth did a perfect job in deflecting it. But before I go there, I have to go ahead and ask my dear brothers and sisters to please go ahead and support Politics Done Right. This is a progressive show that does need your support. So I ask you so kindly to go to patreon.com/Politics Done Right. And I'm putting that inside of the feed right now. Patreon, patreon.com/Politics Done Right. Please subscribe to Politics Done Right. Help us continue to put the message out. I'm going to talk to you about Bloomberg right after I put this request in for supporting Politics Done Right. And those of you that are on YouTube, you can support Politics Done Right by clicking on that $sign and just doing what we call a super chat, and say, yeah, I believe in Politics Done Right, and I want to support Politics Done Right. Or you can click on some of the links that I'm putting in right now. So anyhow, go to patreon.com/Politics Done Right, patreon.com/Politics Done Right. If you want to help us with our equipment upgrade, we are upgrading our equipment. Please go ahead and go to GoFundMe.com/independent-media-upgrade. That is GoFundMe.com/independent-media-upgrade. And of course, you can always contribute at our PayPal, either however you want to do it. You can go to our PayPal that is paypal.me/Politics Done Right. That is paypal.me/Politics Done Right. But you know what? One of the other things that you can show your support, you can tell people, yeah, I believe in independent media, and I'm going to show you guys what I believe in. Independent media is something that helps. And on the screen, what you'll see is you can go to store.politicsdoneright.com, store.politicsdoneright.com. We have a t-shirt now. It says, I support independent media, with the Politics Done Right logo. Please, that would be like a walk-in display that says, I want to hear the truth. And I know this particular program where I can be a part of. Not only can I be a part of, but I can actually tell my stories. Remember, folks, I'm asking you to please either drop me a line at info@politicsdoneright.com so you can tell me about your healthcare stories that I want to promote. I want you to call in, and you can either call in now, 646-716-5812. Tell me your story, or you can also drop me a line at info@politicsdoneright.com. Tell me the story, and I'll do an interview with you, just like I did with the interview I did earlier today with Jonathan Hall, because it is imperative the way we are going to make that change. We are going to change the system by first changing the minds of the average person out there. Because if we can change the mind of the average person out there, there's nothing those politicians and those pundits and those lobbyists can do to further lie to you. We will be in control, because we will be in control of our own mind. So check out our store.politicsdoneright.com. Get that. I support independent media. We have a lot of other t-shirts there. We have cups. We have books, including my As I See It, Class Warfare, the Only Resort to Right-Wing Doom. As I See It, Class Warfare, The Only Resort to Right-Wing Doom. This book will teach you everything you need to know about the economy in an easy to understand manner and why it is that we have to do what we're doing here. As I See It, Class Warfare, The Only Resort to Right-Wing. But all of that you can get at store.politicsdoneright.com. I ask you to support us. We work hard at this. And by the way, I always come and tell people about a little thing here. I'll always tell them, hey guys, do you know when I had a very catastrophic type of high blood pressure that almost killed me, I did certain things to make myself better. And I am telling the story in Lose Weight and Be Fit Now. All of that you can get at store.politicsdoneright.com. We need your support. We really do need your support. Okay, going back to the program, I'm always a little bit, we'll take a little 5 minutes here to promote what we do, but folks, we really cannot do it if you don't have a skin in the game, if you don't have a vested interest in the game. Okay, we're going to talk about that video that I told you about with Warren. And Lou, Mr. Lou Uriv, I'm going to answer your question about Bloomberg right after this video because it's very important. Your question is extraordinarily important. So let's go with what Warren had to say. Check out what Warren had to say here. And then we'll take it on the other side. Elizabeth Warren is one savvy politician, and she understands that there can be no real rift, no real blanket or wall placed between she and Bernie Sanders or any other progressive, and she did it perfectly as George Stephanopoulos attempted to, in a roundabout way, try to get her to attack Bernie Sanders. I want you to listen to this, and then we'll take it on the other side.
I was talking to Vice President Biden about this, is the Republicans control the Senate right now. And he was making the case that it's going to be much, much harder for the Democrats to take control of the Senate if there's a Democratic socialist at the top of the ticket. You didn't take the opportunity to take that on Friday night.
So look, I am not, I am a capitalist. I believe in markets. This is what I talk about all the time. There are areas where markets don't work, like in healthcare and in education. But there are a lot of areas where markets do work, and that's what gives us innovation, and that's what creates opportunity, and that's what can grow wealth. But markets need rules. Markets without rules are theft. So it's a big part of what I'm running on. I want to see an America of opportunity, and that means we need a market economy, but it's got to be a market economy that's fair and that everybody gets to play. That means we need a president who's willing to enforce our antitrust laws, which I'm ready to do.
Now, I want you to understand everything that Elizabeth Warren did there. It was perfect. First, she was about to slip a little bit when he said, if they talk about socialism, she was about to say, I am not a socialist. They would have tried to make that into some connotation as if there's a rift between her and El Senor Sanders. But what she did is she stopped herself and then she said what she was. And she said, I am this, but I do understand that markets don't work everywhere like in healthcare. And she also stated that unregulated markets are nothing but theft. There is not much difference between what Bernie Sanders believed as a democratic socialist and what she believes as a controlled capitalist. You know, these terminologies are what people use to divide people. What I said going forward, let's not use these words. Let's talk to people about what we're going to provide them. Free enterprise for you to do as you will with your company, with your business, or what you want to do, and a very strong social safety net that gives you Medicare for all, that also includes projects that improve the environment. We tell Americans what we are offering are the things that they are asking for, the things that they want. Once we get that done, all that socialism, capitalism talk goes out the door. This one is a kudo for both Elizabeth Warren and for Bernie Sanders. You guys stay the course. Exactly. So you could see what Stephanopoulos was trying to do there. Stephanopoulos, and you know, she almost fell for it. You notice how she said, I am not, and then she immediately, that woman's mind worked very fast. She said, I am not, what she was going to say is, I am not a socialist, but she knew exactly what that would have been, that would have created the big narrative the day after. Elizabeth Warren contrasts herself with Bernie Sanders. She says she's not a socialist. Bernie says he's one. She says she's a, and then they'll run to Bernie and say, Bernie, there's a big rift between you and Elizabeth. Elizabeth says she's not like you. But here's the deal. They can start using monikers, names of anything. The reality is, what she wants is a strong free enterprise system where businesses and the markets can work, where the markets do work. And she also wants to have a state with a very, very strong social safety net. Social Security, Medicare, Medicare for all. That's all you need. Social Security, Medicare for all. Punto final. No necesitamos nada más después de esto. We need nothing else after that, because then our social safety net would be secure. Your health care is taken care of, and if you can't work or you're older, you're also taken care of. And we all, as a society, work hard and we pay taxes. We innovate and we pay taxes. We innovate based on everything that we have learned from others that came through generations. You know, society is something that grows upon itself. And what the current economics does is it tells a few that they can monopolize on the doings. They can monopolize on the achievements of everybody else. Achievements not attributed to them. They may just be able to manipulate capital, and using that capital, take advantage of what everybody else has to offer. When we learn those concepts, when we remove the indoctrination that somehow a stockbroker is worth something, that somehow a banker produces something, that somehow an investment banker says, oh, they produce nada, niet, nothing. Their salaries, their earnings are not because of their intellect. Their salaries and earnings is because they chose to do the easy thing, which is to work with the numbers. Some may say the smart thing because it makes them a lot of money, but that's all they do. The intellect comes from the engineer. The intellect comes from the doctor. The intellect comes from the scientist. The intellect comes from the teacher. Those are the bastions of society. The financial guys are not the bastions of our society. They are the parasites in our society. I'm talking about the bad ones. The good ones play their role, and they're not the ones that are extracting. They're the ones that keep order. They keep financial order. But the ones that are profiting out of this world, they are the parasites of society. Now to Mr. Lou Uri about Bloomberg. When we talk about the parasites of society, we're talking about Bloomberg as well. Bloomberg is an oligarch. Nina Turner she mentioned that with Chris Matthews, and Jason Johnson, he had to take exception. Democrats shouldn't speak about Bloomberg like he is not an oligarch. To hell he's not. Bloomberg is an oligarch. He has a lot of money. Did he make that money from his intellect? No, he made that money based on how a capitalist structure works, which means if you have control of capital, you can keep growing capital much faster than anybody else, and that gives you power within a capitalist structure. For those of us who think this financial system is evil, that's the reason why. Because it's not meritorious. It doesn't reward those who most accomplish, those who most do. I mean, the person who invented a lot of products, they didn't get anything. So yes, Bloomberg is going to go up in the polls because he has very nice commercials out, very nice ads, Mr. Uri. And Americans are still very susceptible to ads. I am hoping, let me tell you what I'm hoping. I'm hoping that there are a lot of politics done rights that spring up. I'm hoping a lot of people start doing what I'm doing. There are quite a few doing it right now, but I want a lot more doing it, because here's what we got to do. We all have to build an audience of, where you listen to Politics Done Right, you listen to many others, so that we can start inculcating within people's minds that the reality that many wants us to believe is true is nothing but a facade. It's nothing but something planted in our heads so that we will continue to enslave ourselves to a few. But we enslave ourselves with, no, they're not. An oligarch cannot be altruistic. And let me give an example. Everybody loves Bill Gates. I like Bill Gates as a person. I think Bill Gates is a very nice person. I do. I really do. And I think Bill Gates means to do well as well. But Bill Gates' billions have made Bill Gates believe that he knows best. So he stands for things like charter schools, even though it is clear charter schools are not better than public schools that are well funded and that are where they hire teachers appropriately. We have to get away from the fallacy. We have to start believing in math. The public sector, capitalism for profit will never work in the public sector because they follow different rules. In the private sector, where you build cars, where you build bottles, where you build phones, right? If that phone doesn't work or whatever, you go ahead and you just throw it out and you throw that money out and say, well, we tried, it didn't work. But when you're dealing with humanity, when you're dealing with transportation, a bus system, you don't say with a bus system, well, okay, if it don't work out, we throw it away. No. The bus system has got to work because we're dealing with human beings for something that is essential. The healthcare system has got to work, else it kills people because you're dealing with people. So there are certain sectors that are bifurcated. There are efficiencies that you make a profit by making things efficient so that you can steal the efficiency as your own. But there are certain things that efficiency is not what's warranted. Okay? There are certain baselines that you don't look at efficiency. You look at humanity. It's the same, I find it amazing, right? Because a lot of people that are pro-life don't see that in a capitalist structure, in certain arenas, in certain forms, it is very un-pro-life. And when people start looking at things objectively, then they will start to understand why we need a bifurcated economy. Now, I want to close out. So my answer to Lou Uriv, are there no altruistic oligarchs? The answer is no. No oligarch by definition can be altruistic because when he decides where to put his money, he's using his own choices, which could and could not be correct. When we do it as a collective, we're doing what society wants. When the oligarch does it, he is commanding it because of the power he has from being an oligarch. That is the same thing like folks saying no, a woman saying no, somebody saying no. An oligarch always does what he or she wants because that is what their power commands. Bloomberg was responsible for one of the most racist policies, the stop and frisk policy. You're absolutely right. And he only apologized for that because he wanted to run and wanted to ensure that he can get the black vote, and that's what he decided to do. But anyhow, folks, I want you to check this out. Lawrence O'Donnell did a little expose on Donald Trump that I really want to play for you, so check this out. After Donald Trump was acquitted from his impeachment, because, of course, Republicans were scared to do the right thing, Donald Trump first made a fool of himself at the prayer breakfast, and following that, he made a fool of himself at his victory lap. Of course, there are those who would believe that it was quite a performance, but from a point of view that is sane, adult-like, he made a fool of himself. Check this out.
Donald Trump got up at the National Prayer Breakfast today, and the very first thing he did was disagree with Jesus Christ. And then he proved how much he disagrees with Jesus Christ when he let his hatred of Nancy Pelosi flow and his hatred of Mitt Romney flow.
I don't like people who use their faith as justification for doing what they know is wrong. Nor do I like people who say, I pray for you, when they know that that's not so.
Stunned silence. That was the reaction in that room, full of religious people who pray every day, all of whom know now that Donald Trump doesn't know what prayer is. But Donald Trump was never taught to pray for his enemies as Nancy Pelosi was when she was a little girl growing up in the Catholic Church in Baltimore. It seems that Donald Trump was never taught anything about love because later at the White House, when he spent an hour raging against his impeachment enemies and praising his impeachment allies, Donald Trump said one of the saddest things he has ever publicly said. He was praising his Republican ally, Congressman Steve Scalise, who was shot by a deranged man with a gun during a practice session for the annual congressional baseball game, and Donald Trump described encountering Steve Scalise's wife at the hospital.
He got whacked by Steve, right? I went to the hospital with our great First Lady that night, right, honey? And we saw a man that was not going to make it. I said, she loves you. Why do you say that? Because she was devastated. A lot of wives wouldn't give a damn. A lot of wives would have said, hey, yeah. I said, how's he doing? Oh, she couldn't even talk. She was inconsolable. Most wives would say, not good. Listen, I'm going home.
Does he mean at least 2 of his, or all of his, wouldn't care if he got shot? Where else could that thought come from? It could only come from a man who does not know what it is to love or be loved. Donald Trump demonstrated today that he has no comprehension of the concept of Christian love or romantic love or marital love, and he has no idea that nothing we have learned about his dealings with Ukraine or his obstruction of justice in the Mueller investigation or his paying off of Stormy Daniels, none of that is as perverse as what Donald Trump revealed about himself today. He does not now, never has, and never will understand the word love, and so he feels nothing when he separates children from their parents at the southern border. He feels nothing when he abandons the Kurds. He feels nothing when he's told that 64 soldiers have traumatic brain injury from the Iranian missile attack on our troops in Iraq. He feels nothing about any of those things and can lie and has lied about all of those things. Donald Trump feels no shame at being impeached by the House of Representatives. He feels no shame at being found guilty by 48 United States senators, including the first senator in history to find a president of his own party guilty in a Senate impeachment trial. Donald Trump feels no guilt. He has never felt guilt for anything. Donald Trump feels no embarrassment at being unable to comprehend anything about the concept of Christian love that was laid out for him today before he got up to speak at a prayer breakfast. The most dangerous thing about the most dangerous president that this country has ever had is that Donald Trump feels nothing.
Prescient words. The most dangerous thing about the most dangerous president that this country has ever had is that Donald Trump feels nothing. And for those who follow him, that is something they should remember. Donald Trump feels nothing. So unless you're providing immediately needed service to you, again, Donald Trump feels nothing. Folks, that is the program for today. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right. Please go to store.politicsdoneright.com to get some of our t-shirts, etc. Or please go to patreon.com/politicsdoneright to subscribe, or just go to politicsdoneright.com and you'll see all those options. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right, and you know how I end this baby. I am what? Out!